God is dead. Not in a church, not in a book, not in a battlefield soaked in the prayers of the dying, but in you, quietly, slowly, without thunder, like a star fading before anyone notices. There was a time you needed him. Maybe you don't admit it out loud, but you did. You clung to some form of him, a promise, a voice, a parent's rules disguised as commandments. You prayed, maybe not on your knees, but in the way you hoped, in the way you waited, in the way you asked the world to be fair and begged for someone to hear you in the silence. But he didn't answer. And in that silence, something began to crack. Not violently, but persistently. A whisper that grew teeth, a doubt that became a scream. And eventually you realized no one was listening, no plan, no savior, no hand from the sky. Only you. You met yourself, and it terrified you. You see, the death of God is not the death of a being. It's the collapse of an illusion. It's the moment you stop pretending someone else is holding the steering wheel. It's the night you lie awake and feel the full weight of your freedom pressing on your chest like a stone. Without God, there are no rules. Without God, there is no punishment. Without God, there is no reward. There's just choice. And choice is terrifying. This is the wound most people run from. They'd rather be chained to something external, a religion, a dogma, a system, than face the chaos inside. Because if there is no God, then who forgives you? Who watches you? Who gives your suffering meaning? That's the abyss. That's the echo Nietzsche warned of when he said, God is dead. He wasn't celebrating, he was mourning. Mourning the loss of something that once kept us tethered, but also warning us. Now that the sky is empty, we must become what we once projected outward. You must become the one who watches yourself, the one who answers your own prayers, the one who decides what is right, and pays the price when it's wrong. And most of us aren't ready, so we look for substitutes. We turn ideologies into religions. We make celebrities into gods. We worship approval. We sacrifice authenticity for belonging. Do you ever feel like someone finally sees the part of you you've always hidden? Here, you don't have to hide anymore. You're safe now. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so we can keep walking this path together. Thank you. We build golden calves out of Instagram profiles and therapist quotes and call it healing. But the real death of God doesn't make us free. It makes us responsible. That's the part nobody told you. And here's the truth. You cannot return to ignorance. Once you've tasted this death, you are marked. The weight of the world no longer sits in the heavens. It sits in your hands. You might deny it. You might numb it. But you know. And the longer you run, the louder it gets. That inner scream, that cold silence that wraps around your spine every time you betray yourself for comfort. Every time you lie to keep the peace. Every time you stay small when your soul is begging you to break. You know. So what now? If God is dead, what rises in his place? That's what we will uncover. But first, let this idea burn. Let it hollow you. Let it leave you naked with the truth. There is no one coming. No one to save you. No one to punish you. Only you and the unbearable freedom of your own becoming. You wake up. The world is the same. The sky hasn't split. The ground hasn't opened. But something inside you has shifted. The scaffolding you leaned on, gone. The voice you once trusted, silent. And now you move through the world as if gravity has changed its mind. Light looks the same, but nothing feels real. You walk into rooms and feel it, that dissonance, that quiet grief of pretending. You say the words, smile the smile, but there's a hollowness behind your eyes you can't explain. Because how do you say this? I no longer believe in the world I built my life around. Most don't. So you keep it in. You shrink. You nod. You let the noise fill your ears because silence now feels too raw, too revealing. You're not ready to answer the questions the silence will ask. But deep down, a new question stirs. If the story is dead, then what remains? This is where the second death begins, not of God, but of your old self. Because when God dies, the part of you that depended on him dies too. The obedient child, the seeker, the one who traded truth for security. You see, you didn't just believe in God. You built your entire self around being watched, judged, redeemed. Now that gaze is gone. No one is watching. And that changes everything. It strips away your mask. Because the mask was for them, for him, for a world where goodness was rewarded and sin was a stain. Without that, what is left of you? Are you still good if no one is keeping score? Are you still kind when kindness has no prize? This is where the real work begins, the dangerous, sacred, lonely work of reconstruction. Not because someone told you to, but because now it's just you. You, the raw material, the chaos, the impulse, the memory, the pain, the potential. You look into the mirror and meet the beast, the shadow, all the things you denied under the banner of goodness, the anger, the lust, the envy, the pride. Now you have to face them. No divine scapegoat, no holy excuse, no savior to pin it on. Only ownership. That's what Nietzsche meant by becoming who you are. Not inventing, uncovering. You're not building a new self. You're burning the lies to expose the one buried beneath. And it hurts, because lies are comfortable. They make you digestible, palatable, human in a way the world understands. But truth, real truth, it's violent. It will cost you people. It will cost you praise. It will cost you peace. But it will give you something more sacred. A spine, a voice, a self you don't have to apologize for. And when you start living from that self, something happens. The world becomes clearer, lonelier maybe, but real. Your yes becomes honest. Your no becomes holy. You no longer betray yourself to keep the illusion alive. You stop worshiping what hurt you. You stop chasing what empties you. You stop offering your soul as a sacrifice on the altar of acceptance. Because now you know. You are not here to please. You are here to become. This is what rises when God dies. The self, untamed, undeniable, unforgiving in its demand for truth. But the path is not smooth. Freedom is a heavy crown, and now that you wear it, you will feel the weight every day. In your decisions, in your silence, in your refusal to play roles you've outgrown. People will not understand. They will ask why you've changed, why you're distant, why you no longer perform the rituals that made you good. They will call it rebellion. But it is resurrection. You are not destroying. You are returning to what you were before they told you who you had to be. Before the fear, before the obedience, before the mask. You are unbecoming. And in that unraveling, something new forms. A core, a clarity, a compass not tied to doctrine but to depth. You stop asking, what should I do? And begin asking, what is true for me? That question, it's terrifying, but it's the beginning, the real beginning. So now, with God gone and the false self crumbling, what next? The answer isn't in the heavens, it's inside the hunger. And that hunger we will speak of soon. Let it burn, let it ache, let it guide you home. The next step waits, and it is not kind, but it is yours. It begins when the hunger outgrows the silence. You've carried it for years. Maybe you didn't call it hunger. You called it restlessness, anxiety, discontent. You told yourself, I just need a break, or I'm just tired. But beneath the surface, it gnawed, a slow-burning ache that no amount of sleep, food, or affection could extinguish. That's the hunger I'm talking about, the one that wakes you in the middle of the night and whispers, "This isn't it." It doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it waits, and it watches as you numb yourself with distractions, with routines, with substances, with people who touch your skin but not your soul. But it never leaves. And one day, when the noise runs out, when the walls collapse, when your performance cracks, it speaks. Become. That's all it says, and that word, it ruins you. Because to become, you must first admit what you are not. You are not your job. You are not your relationship. You are not your reputation. You are not the identity you stitched together from fragments of who others needed you to be. You are something else, something raw, something trembling underneath all that armor. And meeting that version of yourself, that's the real initiation. This is the descent Nietzsche alluded to, not into madness, but into wholeness. Because before you can rise, you must go down, into the basement of your being, into the memories you buried, the parts you rejected, the instincts you suppressed to be loved. That is the path, not up, but down. Individuation is not a ladder, it's a spiral. You do not climb, you circle deeper, closer, into the furnace. And each time you spiral inward, something falls away. An attachment, a story, a mask. And with each loss, the hunger grows. Not because you are starving, but because you are finally clearing space for something real, something ancient, something yours. You begin to feel it, the electricity in your chest, the wildness in your breath, the refusal to shrink any longer. You start saying no, and you mean it. You start saying yes, and it liberates you. You stop performing, you start embodying. And that shift, it costs you everything false. People will leave, opportunities will vanish, certainties will crumble. But what stays is sacred. What stays is you. The you that doesn't need to explain. The you that doesn't flinch at being misunderstood. The you that no longer trades your truth for belonging. This is the death Nietzsche spoke of. Not just the death of God, but the death of all the gods you created in his absence. Approval, image, comfort, identity. And in their place, stillness, power, hunger. The kind of hunger that doesn't seek to be filled, but to create. Because now you understand, the hunger is not your enemy. It is your compass. It's not asking to be satisfied, it's asking to be followed. You don't need a map anymore. You are the direction. But becoming is not glamorous. It's not a highlight reel. It's not an aesthetic. It's not found in journals or vision boards or curated epiphanies. It's found in the lonely hours, the breakdowns, the aching in your chest as you let go of one more illusion. You will cry, you will rage, you will beg for the old comfort. But if you stay with it, if you keep choosing to spiral instead of escape, something will happen. One day you'll wake up and feel it. Not certainty, not peace, but presence. A sense that you are finally here. Not performing, not projecting, just breathing, just being. And from that state, the hunger becomes something else. Not a void, not a lack, but a fire. A fire that doesn't burn to destroy, but to forge. And it will forge you over and over and over again, until nothing is left but the core, the source, the self. So let it burn, let it strip you, let it silence the noise, because the real God never lived in the sky. He lived in your hunger. And now that you've met it, you will never be the same. The question is, will you answer it? Will you let the fire speak? Or will you go back? We'll speak of that in the next part, because not everyone survives the truth. You thought the fire would be enough, that once you touched truth, everything would make sense, that clarity would equal peace, that authenticity would silence the chaos. But no one tells you this. The more real you become, the more alone you feel. Because becoming real means shedding the skin the world knew. And when you shed it, you also shed the connections that were tied to that version of you. And so you enter the valley. Not the valley of death, but the valley of detachment. This is the next step. This is where you meet the consequences of your awakening. This is where the silence becomes unbearable, and you either betray yourself again to be accepted, or you go on. Alone. Aloneness is not loneliness. It is confrontation with your pain, your past, your projections, the voices that told you who you should be, the echo of every yes you said when your body screamed no. In this space, everything you suppressed returns, not to punish you, but to be seen. Because nothing haunts us more than the parts of ourselves we abandoned to survive. And now they're here, standing in the hallway of your becoming, the child who was never enough, the lover who gave too much, the dreamer who was told to be realistic, the soul that asked for truth and was handed doctrine instead. They're not here to hurt you, they're here to come home. But to welcome them back, you must first grieve, mourn the life you lived on autopilot, the years you spent chasing roles, the friends who only knew the edited version of you, the comfort of being accepted for who you were not. And grief, it is brutal, not loud, but persistent, like water on stone. It wears you down, not because you're weak, but because your body remembers every compromise, and now it's asking for repair. So you break, but not like glass, like ground. You crack open, you rupture, you make space. And in that space, new roots form. Roots not tied to performance, but presence. Not to ideology, but integrity. Not to fear, but to fire. This is the architecture of a new self, not built in public, but forged in solitude. You become someone who doesn't need to be seen to feel real. You become someone who doesn't panic in silence. You become someone who doesn't fold when misunderstood. And the more you root, the less you chase. You stop begging people to stay. You stop proving your worth. You stop translating your truth into a language they find comfortable. Because comfort is no longer your God. Truth is. And truth demands sacrifice. You will lose the version of yourself that made others feel superior. You will lose the identity you curated to survive. You will lose the desire to fit in where you never belonged. And in its place, you gain yourself. Not as an idea, not as a role, but as an embodied presence. You walk slower, speak less, But every word, every step comes from somewhere deeper, because when you live from the root, your life becomes a signal, not for validation, but for resonance. And resonance attracts what belonging never could: alignment. You stop trying to find your people. You start being your person. And those who speak your frequency, they find you, not through noise, but through stillness. But here's the truth most won't say. This part of the journey isn't romantic. It's raw. It's boring. It's days of quiet progress no one claps for. It's saying no when it would be easier to surrender. It's watching your old world forget you and not chasing after it. You will doubt yourself. You will ache for the noise. You will miss the drama, the chaos, the distractions that made you feel alive. But you'll also notice something else. You are no longer at war with yourself. There is a silence now, but it is yours. There is a solitude, but it feels like peace. There is a pain, but it is honest. And in that you discover something holy. You do not need to be understood to be real. You do not need to be praised to be powerful. You do not need to be followed to be free. You just need to be you, fully, relentlessly, without apology. And that is rare. That is sacred. That is what this world needs. So when the valley gets quiet again, don't run. When the silence stretches, don't fill it. When the old comfort knocks, don't open the door. You've come too far. You've died too many times. You've built a self the world has never seen. And now, you're ready. For what? We'll speak of that in the next, because once you've met your silence and survived, the real test begins. And it's not about being awakened. It's about staying awake. This is it. Not the climax, not the ending, but the arrival. You've lost the story. You've faced the silence. You've stood naked in front of your own truth and didn't look away. And now something strange happens. The world no longer feels like something outside of you. It becomes a mirror, not because it changed, but because you did. You see through it, the noise, the rituals, the performative healing, the desperate longing in everyone's eyes for someone to save them. You recognize it because it used to be you. But now you know there's no one coming. Sovereignty is not control. It is not dominance. It is not having power over others. It is power over yourself. It is the calm authority that arises when you no longer abandon yourself to be loved. You walk through the world differently now. You no longer beg for clarity. You carry it. You no longer chase peace. You embody it. You no longer grasp at belonging. You radiate it. This is the fruit of the valley. This is the reward of the spiral. This is what the fire forges. Not perfection, but presence. You are not reactive anymore. You are responsive. You no longer need to explain your boundaries. You are your boundary. You no longer need to justify your path. You are your path. You are no longer afraid of being misunderstood, because you understand yourself, and that is enough. This is what it means to live as if God is dead, not to descend into chaos, not to float in nihilism, but to rise as your own authority, your own source, your own sanctuary. You stop outsourcing your intuition. You stop outsourcing your morality. You stop outsourcing your identity. And instead, you become. In this space, creation happens. Real creation, not to impress, not to prove, but to express. You write the book. You leave the job. You speak the truth. You walk away from what dishonors you. You build a life that holds the weight of your truth, and people will feel it. not because you shout, but because your presence now speaks louder than any words. This is sacred, this is holy, and it cannot be faked. So what now? Now you live. Fully, deliberately, without apology. Not as a rebel, not as a reaction, but as a rooted, radiant force. You let your silence be instruction. You let your boundaries be prayer. You let your presence be proof. You walk like someone who knows they are watched, not by God, not by the world, but by their own soul. And that gaze, that's all that matters now. Because in the end, there is no heaven to earn, no hell to escape, only this life. And the question, will you live it awake? Will you let it be yours? Because now you know the truth. God is dead, and in his place you were born. Walk wisely, walk fiercely, walk free.